Welcome to the Unblock Yourself podcast, our podcast where we have conversations either together or with people who are chasing their dreams, making positive change in the world, and living an intentional and unblocked life. But folks, today, this isn't our podcast. This is my podcast. Yes, my friends, this is our first ever attempt at a solo episode. It's a bit meta given the topic, and I'll get to that in a minute. In case you're just tuning in, though, we're kicking off our second season of the Unblock Yourself podcast with a book series. We're walking through 5 books that shaped us in 2025 and drawing out the ideas that have been helpful in the work we're doing. This is episode 6 in our 5-part series. Yes, that is just how crazy we are at Vienna Waits. Episode 6 in a 5-part series. Take that, Tim Ferriss. I said this solo episode was a bit meta because of the context of what we'd be covering. The books we've covered in this series so far touch on a range of topics that impacted and shaped us over the past year. The Third Door and The Obstacle of the Way offer some timeless and practical advice to have courage and stay resilient in the face of challenges. Those are 2 of our favorites. We hope you loved those episodes. Essentialism offers some excellent tactical tips on how to get more shit done in your life. And as we said, it's absolutely one of but both of our all-time favorites. And then Brene Brown and Jen Moss gave tremendous context on how to translate personal values to a broader context, whether that was a team you're leading, a company you're building, or an organization that you're a part of. But we couldn't leave this series without talking about one more book. This book that I'm holding in my hand, Max Kerman's book called Try Hard, Creative Work in Progress. First of all, I love the book title. Try Hard, love that. Creative Work in Progress, love the subtitle as part of it too. We're going to get into all of the why in the course of these next few minutes together. So why is it meta that I'm doing a solo episode on this book, you might ask? Well, because this book at its core is about stepping onto your path, owning it, and having the courage and resilience to create something that is uniquely yours. Something for the world and for me that you want to create. And doing a solo episode feels like something that I've ultimately wanted to try. But if I'm being honest, if we can have a safe space right now, I've been a bit scared to do it until now. So thank you, Max, for giving me the push to finally do it, and we're going to see how it goes. And all of you listening can be the judges. I've got a task for you when you get to the end of the episode of what I'm looking to get from each and every one of you who listen to this. As a final bit of context before we dig in here, you might be asking another question. Why, Greg, do we need book 6 in your 5-part series? Why do you need to break our brains like that, Greg? You might be asking yourselves. Well, I'll give you 2 reasons. 2 reasons why we had to include this book and again, I'm not going with my typical 3 things. I'm going with 2 things. 2 reasons that we needed to include this book. First, the people that we reach and impact with our work at Vienna Waits are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs or leaders at organizations who are trying to have some kind of positive impact in the world. If you fall into any of those categories, this is a book you just must read. So we couldn't leave it untouched or uncovered as part of the series. The second reason that we absolutely needed to cover this book is, well, I'm not on social media much. And Max, to be honest, Arkells is usually at the top of my feed when I log into Instagram, which again, I rarely do. But I did see that Max posted on Instagram that he got a letter kindly from our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, just a few days ago, telling him that and apologizing to him that his book, Mark Carney's book, had actually replaced Max Kerman's book as #1 bestseller in Canada. So, folks, listening to this, part of the reason number 2 for including this book is we got to get Try Hard back to #1. So at the end of this, go out, buy yourself a copy. Max, we're trying to get you back to #1, buddy. All right. So let's get into a little bit of context. Some background, if you don't know who Max Kerman is and what he's all about. So let me give you a bit of context. If you're not already familiar, Max is the frontman of one of our family favorite bands called Arkells. They have absolutely provided the soundtrack for road trips, dinner, dance parties, and their new album, Between Us, which just came out a few weeks ago, it has one of our daughter's favorite tunes on it called What's on Your Mind. It's a beauty. highly recommend, after this episode, going and checking it out. For some more context on Max, though, he started playing guitar when he was 15, just like our oldest has just recently picked up guitar himself. And what captivated Max from the start was songwriting. Arkells as a band began to form a few years later in 2004-2005 when Max found two willing human beings who could play instruments. And those two buddies are Mike and Nick, and they met at McMaster University in Hamilton. Shortly after, they added who would soon be added to the band was Canada's favorite drummer, Tim Oxford. They recorded 2 albums with their keyboardist, Dan Griffin, which are 2 of my favorite albums of theirs, Jackson Square and Michigan Left. Before Dan Griffin left the band to become a lawyer. Dan, don't know where you are today, but hey, Arkells would have been a good ride, but hope you're enjoying the lawyering, buddy. Anthony, a.k.a. Tony Carone, joined, taking his spot, and he joined for the creation of their album called High Noon, and has been with them ever since. And Tony is awesome to watch on stage. The whole band is. Over the years, we've been to 5 or 6 of their shows. Each one of them has been one of our favorite concerts. It absolutely touches the high watermark of what a great concert is every time. And this book gives a rare behind-the-scenes look into what life looks like as a member of a famous band, which is super cool. So to give now a little bit of context on the book itself. So I said before, this book is an absolute must-read for people that we reach in our programming. And that is ultimately because in spite of the success Arkells have had as a band, they are still really a scrappy bunch of entrepreneurs who are just trying to create great music and have fun together. This book gives that peek into what it takes to be a musician and gives an appreciation for the craft and profession as well as the business of being a musician, which I think is super interesting. At its core, the book offers a guide on how to create something meaningful and follow a path that is uniquely yours. So yes, you get to see what it's like to be a musician, but ultimately it's about going deeper into the craft of just creating something and walking your path. As you read the book, or if you choose to listen to it, it's like you're having a conversation with Max, which is going to be super cool for any Arkells fan. And whether you're a fan or not today, once you listen to a few of their songs, I guarantee that you will be. And we will share a few of our favorite Arkells songs, including the one that Whitney and I walked into, our reception from our wedding, which is an Arkells song that we'll share in the show notes. Okay, so let's get into it now. We always talk on this series, and we won't break with convention here for part 6 of this 5-part series, to talk about our 3 key takeaways from the book. So I want to walk you through 3 things that stood out for me from the book. Like I said, though, for you, once you read it, you might have a few of your own. These are just the 3 that jumped out to me. So, key idea number 1. First, this one is a throwback to our first episode in this series. You might remember we talked about Alex Banayan's book, The Third Door. The key lesson from that, or one of the key lessons from that episode, was find your mission and you'll find your people. It's a similar takeaway to what we wanted to talk about here, but it has a slight twist to it. The takeaway on this one is when you find your people, ultimately, it's like a 1 + 1 = 3. Things multiply. Everything gets better when you find the right people and when you find people that you can trust. This is true for the Arkells. This is true for us. And it's true for you. In a chapter called Distractions, in the book, which I've got right here, which we'll dig into in a moment, Max shares a story from the early days of the band. So let's get into it. They released their first album, Jackson Square, in 2008. Bloodlines, great tune. Ballad of Hugo Chavez, great song. All great tunes on that album. That comes out in 2008. They had a successful tour in the U.S. They went to South by Southwest and blew it out of the park, and they caught the attention of some big agencies in the U.S. So now they're getting some attention. It's time to sign a record deal. At the same time that's going on, the band's manager is asking to sign a contract because they're starting to see that momentum and, hey, we got to lock things down. We got to get professional. We got to get real here. And as a young band, this is the first time they've been through this. It led to a lot of wheel spinning. So they themselves were questioning a lot. They're talking to each other and forming their own ideas of how they could play these different scenarios against each other. And as he tells it, Max says that the band spent about 18 months negotiating, debating, and ultimately they lost the opportunity with the US and their manager. Nothing came to fruition. Trust and experience both were low at this point, and without the right support around them, things really just fell apart. And Max describes this as a true low point for the band. But, and this is the big but, as they all began to better understand their talents and where to put their energy and focus, they established partnerships with advisors who they could trust deeply. And that allowed them to focus on what they loved to do and what they were the best at and what they needed to do most in order to build their path. Creating music and memorable experiences for fans is what they needed to focus on. They needed other people to do the rest. I've got to say, as founders ourselves, we can totally relate to this. As we were starting Vienna Waits, we took some of the things that were typically on our plates off, and we had professionals take that on. And those were people that we trust deeply. You know who you are. As we've had some early success, the same has been true. We've been collaborating with customers and other partners who have helped open doors to new partnerships and more collaborations. And when this happens, that's when you can really start building momentum. You can't do everything by yourself. It's not just all about you. And if you can remove distractions, those things truly, truly help. Okay, open up the book now, page 55, 56. Max, yes, I did write all over the inside of your book. I hope you're okay with that. There's just a great quote that Max gives to sum this up. Since there's mutual admiration with our business partners, the conversations are largely enjoyable and energizing. Who can say that about talking to an accountant? For real. But we've experienced that, and it's true. There are negotiations about contracts and money, but it's always with an understanding that the more we all work together and get along, the more success will be had. This is just it. Distractions pile up. When you're trying to start a business, you're trying to get things going, there are so many things that you could do that are not in your lane. The key is removing those distractions, focus on what you're good at, focus on what makes you special and what needs to be your secret sauce, and get those distractions off your plate. And when you do, things will multiply. Okay, thanks for that one, Max. On to number 2. And number 2, I would suggest, is really what this book, I think, Max, I hope we had a chance to talk about this someday. I think this is what the book is actually all about. Because Max offers, on key takeaway number 2, some great advice, some of the best advice I've ever heard on how to overcome imposter syndrome. So, imposter syndrome. This is a theme that's come up, if not daily, then at the very least weekly since we launched our business last year. It surfaced for us as we've tried new things individually, but it's also a persistent theme across our programming, whether it's individuals who we're working with or teams. Doing new things is hard. Now, if you're one of these people who doesn't experience imposter syndrome, or if you don't know exactly what it is or what I'm referring to, let me break it down. So imposter syndrome is that feeling. I want to describe it, and I want to make this personal too. So close your eyes as you listen to this, unless you're driving or walking. Don't close your eyes. Just bear with me and humor me in the exercise. But imposter syndrome is that feeling that we all get before hitting send on a big proposal, before stepping onto stage to say something in front of a group of people, or before pitching any kind of new idea. It's a little voice, how it shows up for me at least, who says, who do you think you are? Or what makes you so special? And I would argue that we all have it, if we're being honest, to some degree. And as I have learned that some of us have it more than others. And I think that I've come up with ways to overcome it for sure. But Max, I think, ultimately comes up with some of the best advice on how to overcome it. Before I get to that, though, I did mention before, we've seen Arkells at least a half dozen times. And if you've seen them, you know what I'm about to talk about. Max and the whole band on stage, it's like they're inviting you into their room. It is an energy fest. People are jumping around. They're having a great time. They're making jokes. If I were to say imposter syndrome in reference to Max or any of the Arkells, I think you'd say, nah, it doesn't apply to them. But I think this is what makes this book so great. Max digs into specifically how it shows up for him generally, and he gives one example that I think stands out above all others. He actually talks about how imposter syndrome showed up for him while he was writing this book, which I think is perfect because this is, not surprisingly, his first book, and he is sitting down to write this book. And as he's going about doing that, he comes across another book, which was very close to getting onto our top 5 books of 2025, a book called The Creative Act. I'll get to that in a moment. But when somebody comes up to Max and says, "Hey, Max, you seem to be somebody who really has your shit together. You don't seem to get scared before you go on stage." Max actually wrote down for all of us to read in the book on page 62 the advice he gives to anyone who comes to him with that kind of question. I'm going to read it to you verbatim, just straight out of the book. This is what Max would say to you. If you said, "Hey, Max, you really seem to have your shit together. I'm a nervous wreck. I really struggle with the imposter syndrome and feeling like I'm worthy of just bringing my ideas to the world." Here's what Max would say to you, and here's what he does say to you right here in the book. Page 62. Most people, so here's what he says. This is what Max would say to you. Most people don't really give a fuck about your journey. I sincerely mean it. People have their own problems to worry about. They're often too busy to really be judging you. Work as hard as you can, create something that you're proud of, do your best, and keep it moving. Each moment is a lesson to serve the next. Read that last part again. Work as hard as you can, create something that you're proud of, do your best, and keep it moving. Love that. So that might sound kind of harsh, but he, as I mentioned, goes on to share his own experience, which I think is so genuine and so great of Max to do and generous of him to do, because he's sitting down to write this first book where he's going to give this advice of imposter syndrome, but he shares how it showed up for him while he was writing the book. So I mentioned before, The Creative Act is a brilliant book by Rick Rubin that we almost included in our top 5 lessons of 2025. For those who don't know, Rick Rubin is a all-time greatest music producer who has produced music. I mean, he's worked with Paul McCartney, Jay-Z, Rolling Stones. He's across the entire spectrum of artists he's worked with, and people would kill to work with Rick Rubin. And so he wrote this book just to summarize this idea of what is creativity, and what is creating. And Max is sitting down to write, and boom, out comes this book from Rick Rubin. And he goes, shit. Well, if he wrote that book, how could I possibly have something different to say? This is what Max says in the book. But Max references what Rubin says in his book, which is creating is not an act of competition. It's an act of love. That is, when you create something, it's generous. So it's giving a piece of you to the world. And the thing about anything that you create is that only you could do it. This is brilliant, folks. Rick Rubin could only write a Rick Rubin book. Max Kerman could only write a Max Kerman book. And you and I could only write, create, or start what we are meant to write, create, or start. So to sum it up, the key to overcoming imposter syndrome really is just to get to work, to do it, and to try really, really hard. Max puts a closing note on this. This is on page 67 in the book, where he closes with this idea to summarize it. Today, I work at a pace that doesn't allow much room for imposter syndrome. It's something that I wish that all of us could say. When we feel that ping of imposter syndrome hitting, remember to try hard. And Max, thank you for that bit of advice. For me and for everybody we work with, it's priceless. All right, on to the third and final idea. Idea number 3. This one is a key takeaway for all the work that we do and is actually deeply personal to me. And this one is the power of intention. So I want to step back here for a moment. Whitney and I love music. You've heard us talk about that before. We love concerts. We go to as many as we can. And if I'm being honest, I always feel this pang of envy when I'm at a show. And it's weird because I've never wanted to be a musician. I've never wanted to be an artist up on stage. But if I'm honest, as I was preparing for this, it became so much clearer to me what that pang is, what that envy is all about. And what it is when you see a great show on stage, and if any of you listening have seen a great show on stage, you just know that you're seeing something that has been intentionally crafted and it's being pulled off in a way that you go, holy shit, that is amazing. That is intentional energy being invested over weeks, months, years of practice and preparation to create these moments that are just truly delightful. That's what I'm envious of. I love the idea of putting all these little pieces together to create something intentional, special, and ultimately something that's deeply, deeply impactful. And Max digs into just that. And he's got this chapter called It's in the Details. Whitney would love this chapter because she says this to me almost daily. It's all about the little things. I've come to see that so clearly. So in this chapter, It's in the Details, Max opened up by sharing a story of how they were preparing for a show in Halifax a number of years ago. They played shows there before, but he wanted to do, I love this, he wanted to do something to make it feel special and unique. He ended up calling a pal. They're having a chat about what are some details about Halifax. I think this friend was local to Halifax, and comes up with just a few words he can say throughout the course of the show that makes people go, yeah, like he gets us. He's here in Halifax. This show was crafted uniquely for us. While I've always loved Arkells' music, the live show experience has been what's taken it to me to, or has been what has taken it to the next level for me with Arkells. And getting this glimpse of how much care goes into each and every show, and I believe it because I've seen a bunch of their shows, and seeing that glimpse behind the scenes just helped me appreciate so much more how intentional Max and the band are about making these experiences special. And he puts a point on it on page 136. Last quote, I think, from the book for this episode. 136. He puts a perfect point in this. The performers I've learned the most from find ways to actively add to their creative projects throughout their day, moving the ball forward with some intention. Bam, the word. So good. So, the power of intention is that you can actually work actively to get better and better each and every day in big ways and in little ways too. If all of this couldn't get any better, Max closes the chapter with a story about my all-time ultimate favorite band, the Tragically Hip. And Max, I know when you listen to this, you won't take any offense to me saying that because it's the Hip. Okay, Gord Downie is the lead singer of the Tragically Hip. And one of the things he was famous for, because he's passed away, and if you're not familiar, he died of brain cancer in 2017, so not performing anymore, but when they were in their prime, he would have these antics on stage. He would storytell, and he looked like he was rambling on, and he would captivate the crowd, keeping everyone guessing what would happen next. And I saw some of these shows, it would always feel like it was just about to fall off the rails, like, where is he going with this? But suddenly, bam, he'd hit with a punchline, and the band would just crank it up and rock back into one of their tunes. I'm actually getting goosebumps describing that because it's true. It would be so good. Max actually shares a story at the end of the chapter of when they were touring with the Hip in 2013. Gord was sitting with him, and he's telling a story backstage about music and the road, and Max and the band are all loving it, right? They're just getting a glimpse into the inside world of Gord Downie. And later that night, they're watching from the side, and he hears Gord telling that same story to the crowd. He was practicing. He was testing his material. He was seeing what worked. He was intentionally trying to get better and better always. Being intentional is truly what gives any of us the power to be great. Like Gord Downie and the Tragically Hip, like Max, Mike, Nick, Tony, and Tom from Arkells, the power of intention gives us the ability to move mountains. Takeaway number 3. And there's more goodness in the book, I promise, if you pick it up and write it. This book, or pick it up and write it, pick it up and read it. This book is essential reading for entrepreneurs, leaders, and leaders in organizations who are trying to make any kind of positive impact in the world. I guarantee that if you go out and you spend the $20, you'll get something great from the book. Unlike other books that we've referenced in the series, we always want you to go and support the authors, get their books, pick up a copy. I insist that you go and do it for this one. You will find your own takeaways, and it will be the best $20, $30 that you've ever spent. So just to wrap this thing up, this has been so much fun. This episode, but the whole series that we've done. And I just want to share that Whitney and I are on a mission to help 1 million people live more intentionally. And ultimately, that's what Vienna Waits is all about. The people that I've mentioned who we work with in our programming, our retreat, and in organizations, all of you and the people who we've worked with are the ones taking bold steps to help make the world a better place. Reading Try Hard makes me feel at least a little bit like Max in particular, but I would suspect the whole band feels the same way. More of us doing work that is personal and that we're passionate about will make the world a better place. So let's keep at that work. This book, it helped us stay on that path, and I genuinely believe it'll help you too. So just get out and grab a copy. Man, this was a blast. I hope Whitney lets me do another one of these again someday. And if you liked it, please let me know. Let us know. Respond back, leave a comment, send us a note. Let us know if you liked it. If you didn't like it, though, well, how about this? If you didn't like it, instead of telling us, which I was thinking that I would say, maybe just write something back. Like, just say, hey, that episode was tuna fish or something. Just use some sort of code word that kind of gets at what you're feeling, but doesn't say it. That'll be harsh. So just give us some sort of code word and let us know. If you enjoyed this episode, you will love the other episodes that we have in our 5-part series. If you go back and check them out, those Whitney and I do together. But this is the end. This is part 6 of our 5-part series. There are no more parts coming. We'll be back in a little bit with some more interviews with personalities and people who are chasing their dreams, making a positive change in the world, and living an intentional and unblocked life. We're so excited to bring their stories to you and share how they are trying hard. See what I did there? Themselves. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate every one of you who listen, and we will see you soon.
That's it for today. If you like this episode, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you'd be willing to leave a rating or a review, we do read every single one. And it genuinely helps more people find the show and helps us keep doing what we're doing. And if you do like this episode and what we're talking about here, you'll probably love our 100% free bi-weekly newsletter. It's called the Vienna 5, and you can find the link to that in the show notes. Music for this podcast is by Moby, who we still think is very cool. We're glad you're here. Thanks so much for listening.